So I'm going to go on camera. Yay! Oh my gosh, we have a good crew here. We're starting off well. Yes, and Kirk is here. Hi, Kirk.
Hi, Laura. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. And we still have people joining. We have a quorum, though. The good news is we have a quorum for the Zoning and Revision Committee. But we're hoping to get a couple more people. Well, I'm sure we're going to have Ed. I'm trying to think. We already have Connor. So the people on the zoning revision, and of course, Judy Stellato is looking to join our group. So it's be good for her to be on to, and there she comes. And we do have some guests. Yay. Let me just get my notes going here. I got David, Jeff, Kirk, Judy. We have Connor, and we were hoping for Ed. And Michael should be joining too, although Michael, as we know, already knows a lot of what's going on this. And we were hoping for Ed, so I'd like to give another moment for Ed to join. Well, we can get going on other, it makes sense to wait for the housing presentation till we have Ed. I was speaking with Ed this afternoon, so I definitely expect him to be here. I did just send the agenda out, and so we can do some things on the agenda while we're waiting. And oh, and so David, I guess I should include Pat, right? Because as far as attending, Pat is with you?
She's downstairs. She'll be up in a minute.
Okay. So I'll list her as a guest. I'll assume that she joins, even though I might not see her. And we are being recorded, as I think you know. And let me pull up committee agenda. And I will share my screen. And this is really why we wait for Ed. So I do have our agenda up. We do have a quorum, so we can adopt the agenda. The agenda, as you can see, the main plan today, well, the minute status is there. It's the same as it was before, but I like to keep track of all that because we're going to be voting on some of that. The minutes are, for most meetings, are available, and we do still need to get a vote, which I'll send an email vote request out. We want to talk about Judy, I know she goes by either. And so I said I put that on the agenda. So, well, hi there, David. So we are, I'm excited that we're looking to put Judy as part of our zoning revision committee. I have talked to Bill McKenna about it. He says we don't actually need a resolution. We can all make it happen. I've talked to everybody and everybody has given a thumbs up. So Jude, if you're still interested, I say we go for it. And if anybody else on the zoning revision committee wants to share any thoughts, you're certainly welcome to. But anyway, Judy, I think you're still saying yes. So we'll make it official this evening.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
Is Ed?
Hi there,
Yeah.
Ed.
I'm in favor of her being on the committee, but did the town board get a vote on this? This is a town board committee.
Well, it is. I spoke with Bill, and Bill didn't seem to think there's different levels of committee. In some committees, you need to take an oath, et cetera, et cetera. This committee was formed by a town resolution. Bill gave me the go ahead to add Jude as we see fit on the committee. He didn't believe there was a resolution needed. If you would like me to make
Okay.
sure we have a resolution, he will happily put one on the agenda for the town board.
Well, the point is now it becomes a 6-person committee.
7.
And why is it 7? It was 5 before.
6. Yeah, there's Ed, there's you, me, David, and now that you're here, we were holding up on the Housing Oversight Task Force presentation, waiting until you arrive. So now that you're here, let me stop sharing my screen and we'll go back to all that. So Ed, just, and thank you for being here. So David, Laura, Jeff, Ed, Connor, Michael, who's not here. So we do have 6 official members, and so Jude would make the 7th. So we would still have a quorum of 4, and then we could discuss as a group. We had said if we're going to make a law change, we need 4 out of the 6 to agree to it, and then we could decide, do we want to up that for a law change recommendation since we have another member? But I would like to reset, because we were getting into other items, because Ed, we were waiting for you, and I didn't want to have the Housing Oversight Task Force presentation start without you. Michael is a member, so for Michael to not hear part of it, he already has been part of it, so he knows that. But I would like to redirect, and so Jeff, you were going to be our presenter, if you're still happy to do that. Jeff, we'll redirect and do that because we have guests. Well, first of all, let me recognize guests. So thank you, Kirk, for joining, and Deborah joining, both leaders of the Housing Oversight Task Force. And so they are here. Another guest is Janine Fallon-Maurer, who is joined because she's, I've known Janine, I feel like forever, and somebody very interested in the town of Woodstock and what's going on in general. And so she's putting an ear in to see how we're doing here. And then David's other half, Pat, was going to join us. So whenever she joins, she's there. Hi there, Pat. Hi. So, yeah, a hand. I recognize that hand anywhere. So anyway, we do. So we'll recognize guests. So we have some guests that want to hear what we're doing, and we have some guests that are here specifically for the Housing Oversight Task Force presentation. And with that, Jeff, I'll turn it over to you for the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Basically, I just want to first talk about the summer, what we're trying to do, what the goal of the Oversight Task Force is doing, and then basically the process that we've taken to this point. The process is still ongoing, and part of the process that we're doing now is to inform various community groups and committees how we got to where we are and what our intention is and how we expect to move forward in the future. So the intention of the Housing Oversight Task Force work is to make housing more available to people of a range of incomes and backgrounds while preserving our town's unique character and scale and continuing to protect our treasured natural environments. That summary sentence. Mm-hmm. We crafted that. We very specifically looked what that means and what every piece of that means, because it really does reflect what we're trying to do. And I'm going to kind of review that carefully and slowly. So the first part is to make housing more available and to a people of a range of income levels and backgrounds. What that means is basically we want to look at how to change zoning to make housing more possible to create in Woodstock. You know, it's a supply and demand issue. So if we can increase the supply, we'll make housing more available. And the goal there is to make sure it's not just more available to those that can afford $1 million homes, but to people that can afford homes in a variety and a range of income levels. And the next part of it is while preserving our town's unique character and scale. We're not looking at creating a city. We're not looking at creating even a large village. We're looking at it being a town that looks like and acts like and feels like the town that we all moved to and that we all love. And that's why we're here. So that's an important part of this is the character and scale that we have now should continue on into the future, even with an increase in housing. And lastly, and to continue to protect our treasured natural environment. So we want to do this all with not just considering the environment, but embracing the environment, embracing what we're doing with the environment, embracing our protection of the environment. And we feel that we can do both. We feel that we can increase housing accessibility and actually do a better job of protecting our environment at the same time, all while maintaining our character and our scale. So that's really what we're working on. We spent a lot of time on those main points as we've gone through the process. The process of what we've done was started primarily with, the moratorium was kind of the initiating action that got this moving. Around that same time, we were able to get a grant to hire a really great consultant, Nan Stoltenberg, who has a lot of background in this and is a professional in drafting zoning updates for housing and planning recommendations. Our first meeting was held back on July 6th of last year, and we met twice monthly through December, only once in December because, it's December. So we initially looked at, and with Nan's help, we looked at all of the zoning laws that impact housing. And we looked to see what those laws do and how they work and whether or not they support basically our mission, which is to be able to increase housing while preserving our environmental, our environment and our town's scale and character. So we looked at all of the existing laws. We looked at good parts of them, bad parts of them, what need to be changed, what could be changed, and how we could change those. We went through each of those in great detail, looking at all of them, and came up with a number of ideas to modify those to, again, achieve our goal. So that's essentially what we've done so far. That is now creating zoning code changes that we will be seeing very shortly. We haven't seen them yet. Nan is writing those and she's working on those. We'll see those. We'll get the initial results of those in the next few weeks, I believe. Kirk may have a better time frame than I know. And that will then go through, I'm trying to get this abbreviated here, and I'll go through reviewing at the town. We'll look at what if scenarios to test the code against various applications, various locations. Then eventually we'll make a recommendation to the town board and submit the draft code to the town board and the town committees. And of course, the town board is the body that then ends up taking it through and making it law. And that's essentially it on a very quick summary. I find that going on a quick summary and asking and letting people ask questions is the most effective way to transmit data. So questions, I'm sure there's a bunch. Maybe not.
Yeah, well, I'll chime in a little bit. So one of the other things that we did at the early point was we did do a series of interviews, because for this Housing Oversight Task Force to get going on what we were doing, we wanted to start out by, there were 7 of us on this task force, representing different committees, representing housing, representing the planning board, representing zoning revision committee. Michael represented the zoning board of appeals. So we had a lot of us representing different areas, but we didn't want this just to be a piece of work done by 7 people. Well, I mean, it is. However, we didn't want to just think about what was on our minds. We did begin with a series of interviews where we interviewed people from religious organizations and some business owners and various people from people that work for the town, et cetera. We had a long list of people we interviewed. So we did want to make sure that we heard what everybody had to say. Well, not everybody, but a sampling of everybody, we'll call it, as we got going with trying to come up with some direction to Nan. So the task force, as Jeff said, has done a lot of work to figure out what we think the direction to Nan ought to be, because Nan would say, well, here's what's in the law, but here are your alternatives. You could do this or that. How do you like this or that idea? And so that's what the task force worked on. Environment was extremely high priority. Things like, you'll probably see some, I'm sure you will see things like conservation subdivisions coming forth, because the environment was first and foremost to make sure that we kept Woodstock while providing opportunity. And nobody's going to make anybody build anything anywhere, but the new law will provide opportunity for, building in the areas where it makes the most sense to keep all those objectives in place that Jeff had said. So, so as a zoning revision committee, we're going to be seeing this probably in March, and we'll have probably 2 weeks to review it. We are one of the several committees that are going to, the Housing Oversight Task Force will clearly want to know what the zoning revision committee thinks of the proposed law, because we have a lot of talent and expertise in this zoning revision committee. So the thought is, as soon as we know when it's coming, I'll let you all know, because the hope is that in 2 weeks' time, the zoning revision committee can review the proposed law so that we can be quick at getting our feedback in, because as Jeff said, they'll go through a process where committees see it and the town board will have it, committees will see it. We'll want to have a lot of people see it. Part of the process is public hearings, so the public will see it. Before we get to the public seeing it, we want to have important groups such as the zoning revision committee crawl through it and give our feedback, because we want this law, as it goes through the process, to get stronger and stronger. So by the time it gets out to the public at large, it's already had a lot of smart, talented, knowledgeable people looking at it. So hopefully we will have solved problems before it reaches the public at large. So the zoning revision committee has an extremely important part in this, and that important part we expect to be about the March timeframe. So I just wanted to connect the dots of what the expectation of zoning revision committee is here. It'll be to do a review as soon as the law comes out and provide feedback so that we can make this law as strong as possible and as appropriate as possible.
You did that hand raise earlier. Do you have a question?
I did.
Hi, Jude.
Hello. I've lamented what's been happening in town and how little of our existing housing stock is affordable. So in addition to looking at what you could change in the law that would make it easier to build homes that are affordable, have you looked at anything that can be done to kind of put a halt? And I'm going to put most of this in the lap of Airbnbs and those kinds of rentals and investors who are purchasing them. Is there anything we can do to,
Yeah, we have looked at that. We have definitely looked at that. I think one thing, so in my opinion, a lot of what we're seeing is a supply and demand problem, right? It's basic economics 101, right? And part of the economics 101 is a lack of supply of accessory dwelling units. In the past history, a lot of accessory dwelling units were used for long-term rentals. And many of those got converted to short-term rentals because it's more profitable. Right. So we are looking at expanding the ability for accessory dwelling units, ADUs, throughout the town. There are some areas where they'll be allowed 2 ADUs instead of 1 ADU per property, where it's appropriate. And it'll change the definition of what it takes to have an ADU. Right now, there's size restrictions that make it very difficult for many places to have an ADU. Like my house is probably too small to have a reasonable ADU with it because of the ratio between the ADU and the house requirements make it kind of hard to do that with a smaller house. So we're changing those rules to make ADUs more easily buildable, and we're setting it up so that ADUs can only be used as long-term rentals. So that will reinvigorate the stock of those things, which will help create, bring that back. It kind of works a little bit with the STR rules, and the STR rules too are looking at, changing some of their operation too. Rich Happener knows it better than I do. I don't want to quote that. I'm not up on the STR stuff. I'm not part of that committee. But I think the big thing is expanding ADUs, which creates more supply, and ensuring that supply goes to long-term rentals.
Right, that makes sense. Sorry, go ahead.
Kurt.
I just wanted to add that that's one of the main drivers for the moratorium was to pause the short-term rentals properties that were being purchased for short-term rentals intention. So that moratorium is in play, and that's, you know, one of actually the only aspect of the moratorium was to put a damper on that type of activity, giving us the opportunity to do the work that the comprehensive plan set forth for our town. And that's, you know, as a result, we have a committee right here that we're talking to that is a result of the comprehensive plan, as is the housing committee, as is now this task force, because all of this is stemming from that plan. This, you know, the efforts that's in play is more of a collaborative effort, if you will. And I think that's what Laura was alluding to, that it's not going to be really one committee that's going to be able to achieve the end game or the results that we're hoping to achieve. So what the task force is reaching out to each of the boards and committees now to establish a rapport around the draft code that's coming, so that when we see some of the things that are being recommended or that may become recommendations, that there'll be an opportunity to exchange ideas as to how that may come in conflict with other things that you see, or that may be a good idea, but it may need to be slightly changed to improve. And so there's this collaborative back and forth that we're seeking from this committee and from other committees as well, to create a rapport around understanding the goals that Jeff alluded to in the beginning, that we are seeking to achieve housing that maintains the character and scale of our town. We're seeking to develop housing so that, and at the same time, preserve our environment. So, you know, I think that the intentions are there, and we just have to make sure that the code it holds up to those intentions. The other thing I wanted to say is that one thing that's not articulated in the report that you each received is that there will be a land use lawyer that will review the code prior to the recommendations and before it goes to the county for review. So there's going to be a thorough review of professionals, if you will, that understand land use law, so that all the different angles and perspectives that are required in order for this thing to move forward are looked at and understood. And I just wanted to mention those two things.
I saw Deborah's hand up.
Oh, yeah. So I'm just going to really quickly, Jeff alluded to the idea of doing what if scenarios. So at some point, we're going to actually do, as we've done in terms of educating ourselves on housing best practices, housing zoning best practices. We've also then put that, overlaying that on our town and our environment and the character and scale of our community. So hopefully there'll be alignment, but then we actually want to test it out so that when we come back to you with these ideas and recommendations, we can have, we can have some back and forth to really ensure that we're achieving the goal that we've set out to achieve in that, so that it goes from the sort of the general to sort of the principle to the practice, right? So when we're actually looking at our community and we're envisioning, none of us really know what the future holds, but we want to try and do as much as we can to really envision that in practical terms. And that's why, working with you and the planning board and the other committees is going to be, invaluable to us as we go forward.
So I know we have a lot of quietness on the zoning revision committee. If I could ask, go ahead, Dad.
It seems to me this is very premature. I mean, we need the language that this woman, Ann Stoltenberg, is drawing up this draft legislation. And then it's going to be presented in March, and then we'll have 2 weeks to analyze it, which seems very limited in time frame for such an analysis. I mean, as a guy that I work, well, anyway, I won't say what I did in the past, but I worked very hard to write this zoning law that's in place now. And it didn't, the hearings went on for months and months and months. And we had here, you know, it was very complicated to get, and if you, it sounds like what Jeff said, which is a very noble presentation, and I am 100% in support of it. I'm totally in support of affordable housing. And what he presented, though, it sounds to me like it's going to, you know, we should have a meeting after we get this draft language. And it should, the comment time and the working on this time should be expanded to, you know, at least 2 months, you know, like one or like 2 weeks is, I don't know, you know, maybe it'll be a perfect document, and I can relax and say, wow, this group did a wonderful job. I'm sure that it will be a great job. So
I think it will take more than a couple weeks to review it. If I said 2 weeks, I think that 2 weeks we'll start to see it, not that we have 2 weeks to look at it.
No, I said that. The reason why I said that is because I think in our rollout, that was our hope. And Ed, I always appreciate you chiming in, Ed, because you have experience and you know what you're talking about. So I think the hope was that we would get it, and then in 2 weeks, the committees would have a 2 week turnaround, because so we could kind of keep rolling it out and keep it moving, and the moratorium is going to end. And so that's a consideration too. But reality is what it is. And Ed, you're helping us understand reality. You're helping us understand. And part of it depends on the magnitude of the changes. In your case, Ed, you were part of an effort that rolled out the entire zoning law. So we're not replacing the entire zoning law, but we're going to be replacing parts of it. We're going to be introducing some new tools. We're going to be introducing some different things. We're not replacing the whole thing. And we might not know until we dive in. Can it be done in 2 weeks? Your estimate is it probably won't be able to be done in 2 weeks. And when we look at it, we'll have to see what reality is, because we want to do it right. And Kirk, I see you want to respond.
Yeah, I think that the part of the schedule that we have printed here, we have actually from March 1st to May 1st. So that's like 2 months, Ed, that where there'll be work back and forth between the committees, right? So there, you know, the very 2 months that you thought would be appropriate is written in this schedule. It may not be clearly written, and you can fault me for that, but there's an effort here to give ourselves ample time. You know, we're not trying to arbitrarily create a compressed time arbitrarily for no reason. So other than the fact that we want this to be out into the public, you know, by, it's June, July. So we need the county to look at it, and they have 30 days plus to do that. And then the lawyer to review it and such. But I think between the March 1st and May 1st is really the window that we're going to see this going back and forth. And there's going to be plenty of opportunity for us to have lengthy discussions on various issues.
And it's important to take our time doing that, because as people who have passed laws know, I haven't passed laws, but I've seen them passed. Laws that are complicated, you have to check every piece of it out, because you don't understand. You may not get, there may be things that you don't think about that can be really disastrous. And, you know, we've seen that in some laws passed in the state that have had real big issues, and we've seen that in some laws that we've had here. So we got to be really careful how we do that, and make sure people understand and don't have any questions on interpretation. I think interpretation be really clear too. So there are a lot of details, and, you know, I expect it to take a while to make sure, and even to go through all the scenarios, all of the you know, examples that we may have in town, like, how does this fit? Does this work? Oh my God, this is wrong, and go back and fix those things, because it's easier to fix a law before it goes into place than after it goes into place.
I agree.
Yeah.
Hello?
Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, well, that's very good. But one thing that flags in my mind is sending it to the county planning board, Now, you're going to do this in two stages, I assume. You're going to submit the first version that she comes up with to the county planning board, and then there will be,
No, we will go through it all ourselves amongst the town, and we will get it to as close of a recommendation as possible before we give it to the county.
so the town board will sign off on it and then submit it to the county and all the involved agencies it's not only the county planning board.
Right.
Of course, it's the whole
Seeker,
process.
under seeker.
And
Yeah, the
there's,
secret
and,
process.
okay, well, that sounds good.
And yeah,
Go ahead, Deborah.
no, I just wanted to say, so in a way, Ed, it is a compressed time frame because of, as was mentioned, because of moratorium, but because we have a number of committees already engaged, we have the comprehensive plan, we're in the process of trying to implement it and bring all of this into alignment. And as a task force, we're kind of geared up. Honestly, I think the weight is on our end to get this going once we have some language, but we wanted to come at this point in time to just tell you what we've been working on, how it's going, what our plan is, even in advance of having that, right? Because we did a really deep dive, we did a lot of education, we've looked at a lot of things. So we're at a point now where we're going to have some specific language that can actually be applied in a law. And that's really, the rubber hits the road there. So that's where we're going to, meet up with you in that space.
Yeah, we wanted to just give you an update on where we are. A lot of people have been asking about what the task force has been doing. And so we didn't want to delay that any further. But to your point, Ed, there isn't much to talk about because there's no draft code at this point. And we'll have that soon. And when we have that, we'll begin to share that with you.
Yeah.
What about,
And just on that point before I turn it back over to you, yeah, I think we did think it was a good idea because you're right. Without the draft code, there's nothing concrete for you to respond to. But we thought a kind of a handshake kind of a meeting to get people ready to receive the code, to know it's coming, to talk about it's coming, talk a little bit about our process. So when you get the code, you're already looking for it rather than, oh, here it is, boom, drop it on you. We did think it was a good idea to let everybody know some of this background information kind of as a precursor. So when you get the code, you feel like you know something about it, even though you don't know the real code until you see it. So, oh, Judy, we have Judy here. Judy, can you hear me? I see Judy, I don't hear Judy. Anyway, Ed, you have something else to say?
well, this initial draft that the woman is drafting for the group, it will go to the town board?
No,
It will only go to groups?
it'll go to the task force first. We will go through the review. We will have iterations back with Nan saying, what about this? What about that? And we'll have our own cycle with Nan. And then after that iteration, it'll come out to the groups such as this group here. And one reason why we're coming out for this update now is so that you can say, okay, in the month of March and May, your committee needs to make space for us to come back in and have these discussions. But there will be a back and forth between the task force and NAN for some said weeks. I think that's like a 2-week, 3-week period. And then we will be ready at that point to come forward and have cycles with the planning board, the zoning revisions committee, the ZBA, and some of the others.
So it won't go to the town board, because I'm thinking if this package is as well formulated as I think it's going to be, why couldn't it go to the town board and then ask the board to weigh the value of this package and to attach an extension to the moratorium of, say, 2 months? And that would give us time, everybody time to breathe more easily and not feel like we're on a terrible deadline. You know, it's like a book deadline. I mean, it's a horrible thing when you have a book deadline. So it's just an idea. Just an idea. I don't know.
Well, there is conversation about whether or not we would need an extension, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But at this point, we still have time to work with it. Should we need an extension? I think Bill's open to that.
But I think that the way the timing, and Judy, we'll get to you in a sec. I think the way the timing worked, I think that the moratorium started around June or July. So it was a 9-month moratorium. Even if we extend it 3 more months, it kind of only takes us until June. And the schedule, even with what we're talking about, we wouldn't be finished until June. So because by the time we've gone through all the steps, and by the time by the time the different committees have reviewed it and go back, and then it goes back and now it becomes an official town document and the town sends it through the process, all that does take time. So from where we are now to June, even if we get the extension, it's kind of all packed in there. So, and Ed, again, I hear what you're saying, and I'm a reality person. So reality is what it is. You can build, I'm a professional project manager, as just about everybody knows, is you build a plan and then you go along and you see how does reality match to the plan. And every now and then reality just makes the plan go differently. And you're talking reality, Ed, so I get it. But I think that the hope is that when the Housing Oversight Task Force has the document ready for committees to look at, that the committees do prioritize and jump right in as much as possible, because time is going to be of the essence. From the moment we have that code in our hands, that updated law updates, from the moment we have that in our hand till the moment we got to get it turned around, the faster we do that, the better we are for the moratorium of not having it end, even with the 3-month extension end. And here we still are, another 5 months. We want to be as efficient as we can once we get that code. So reality is what it is, but that's the hope, and we'll see how reality matches. And Judy, welcome. Judy from the Planning Board, and you're with the Zoning Revision Committee, and people that you know, Kirk and Deborah from our Housing Oversight Task Force. And did you want to add something?
What I wanted to add was that, speaking from a planning board point of view, how this will work in practice is something we need to think about and see whether the language in the code presents any immediate red flags for us. That's probably true for Zoning Review Committee 2, Zoning Appeals Board 2. I'm not as sure about the other committees, but the more people understand what's going on and have a chance to give input, who are actively involved in the town's, work on the ground, I guess I would say, the better the final code that we bring to the planning board is going to be.
Right, absolutely. An excellent point, because this has to be usable by the planning board. And so getting different committees like the Planning Board and Zoning Revision Committee, who has a lot of expertise, looking at it before it becomes rubber.
But I'm also talking about the Zoning Board of Appeals, which also is going to have to apply it if there are,
Sure, absolutely. Right. So the idea of having all these groups look at it before the town board says, okay, yes, we think it's ready to go, it makes sense for the groups that have to use it to be looking at it. And that's a really good point.
Yep. That's the plan.
So I haven't heard really from Connor or David. Anything that you guys want to add to the conversation?
Nothing yet.
Very much looking forward to seeing the language roll out. I'm sort of with that, let's see what comes of it. I'm also obviously particularly interested in seeing how we can approach the Airbnb situation, but like I said, eager to see the language.
Yep.
Well, you'll see it soon.
Indeed.
Can I just say one thing?
Oh, go ahead, Judy.
When I was talking about the Airbnb situation, I wasn't just talking about rentals for accessory units. I was also talking about people being able to purchase a home ownership. Just
Right.
throw that in there. It wasn't just about rentals.
Yeah. Well, and that's really the hope. And what Jeff said early on in his part that he was presenting is the supply and demand issue. If we can raise the supply a bit, then there's definitely a demand. But if we can raise the supply a bit, that will help people get more choices of what might be affordable for them. If right now all that's available is the high end for the people from New York City that have, gobs of money, it's not good. But if we can have some more ADUs here or there, and if we can, well, that's a rental, sorry. But if we do allow for more building in ways that are proper for Woodstock, keeps the culture, the look, the feel. If we can have some more of that, then we may have some more opportunity for more people to buy things. So
Can I
you
throw
can
one more,
wrap-
can
you can-
I throw one more thing in?
yeah, why don't you do that, and then we'll go to Deborah.
Okay, well, the last thing was, and I know this isn't connected necessarily to zoning, it's having more to do, and I don't even know if it's a realistic thing, but is there any kind of homesteader tax abatement, anything like that, that the town can do to encourage people to actually live here? And rather than, investors and LLCs like we see all the time. I know that may not be in your purview, but if it is, maybe something.
Well, there are some incentives, but I see Deborah's got her hand up and she would know more about incentives. I don't know if she's going to answer them incentives, but she'll know more than I do. And you're on mute, Deborah.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So just really quickly, so Kirk and I are also on the housing committee, which also was appointed from the comprehensive plan. And we're looking at a housing plan for the community that includes a number of different strategies that reflect, your comments. We're also looking at policy, how state policy might be helpful to Woodstock to give us funding to be able to support more housing options in the community. So all of this, it's kind of like all these things are happening all at once. And on one hand, that's a really good thing, but everything takes some time. The zoning is a very specific code issue. And so we're really fortunate we have the ability to focus on that. But these other things are still going on. We're still working on them. And I think we're going to be excited, hopefully, when we have all this, be able to share with the community, because I think and we also want to continue to hear exactly the kinds of comments you're making, because that's what's going to make it work for Woodstock.
Yep. Lots going on. Any other questions on this topic or comments? Okay, cool, excellent.
Thank you for having us, everyone. I appreciate your listening, and look forward to working with you. I know that working with Jeff and working with Laura and getting this all rolled out so that your input can occur. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be a group effort. It's been a group effort, and it's going to be more of a group effort for sure.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you both for joining.
And thanks, Jeff, for presenting.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Excellent job. Yay. So,
bye, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye. So we're back to our meeting. And Judy, you can, we have a Jude and a Judy on the call. So Judy Kerman, you can stay or go as you choose.
I'm going to go. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining.
Bye.
So okay. So we're back to where we were. I'm going to share my screen. We didn't yet adopt the agenda. I kind of did some items in addition to so why don't we go back to the very beginning, and that is we'll look to adopt the agenda. Open the meeting, adopt the agenda.
I'll make a move to adopt the agenda. I've read it by now.
Oh, yay! Adopt agenda. Anybody second?
Come on now.
I'll second. I won't be shy. All in favor? Aye. Do we have an aye?
Aye.
Yay! I heard. What's that?
Am I allowed to vote?
Well, we'll finish getting through your topic. And I'll let you know. I'm hoping you're allowed to vote by the end of the meeting, but I'm only one person on the committee. So, okay. So we'll go down. We've already done the Housing Oversight Task Force update. We've done that. The minute status to make a long story short. So to make a long story short, I did not get the minutes out from the last meeting. It was there's a lot going on, which we'll talk about in a minute. And I have the minutes kind of half written, but not totally. So I still owe you that. And I still owe you some minutes from a long time ago. But at some point, I'll send a big email to say, hey, do you approve all these minutes? And we'll get them all cleaned up. But in any event, you've got a lot of minutes. I owe you some, and we're working on that. So that's the status of that.
She can't-
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Okay, so new member Jude. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Where we left off. So Ed, you were asking about, and I'm just getting my notes here. You were asking about process, and we have 6 official members right now. We have a reference document that talks about how we do our business. The reference document does say that because we have 6, normally you have an odd number. We haven't run with an odd number. We've had 6. So 4 has been our number for things. 4 has been our quorum. 4 has been our number. We had said in our reference document that I could pull up that how we're going to conduct business in our meetings. We have said that majority rules of the people who attend for things like, are we going to approve minutes and this and that? So 4 is a quorum. So we have to have 4 to have a meeting, but as long as we have 4 people, majority rules for decisions, except if we're going to put forward a specific law change, then we need to make sure we have all 4. It can't just be you have 5 people and 3 say yes, 2 say no. If we're going to do a law change, we said we need all 4 people for this committee to put forth a law proposal. So that was the main thing there. By having a 7th person, we can agree amongst ourselves if we want. I think it makes sense for 4 to still be a quorum, and we could make a decision amongst ourselves that, and I think it still makes sense, whoever's at the meeting, the majority rules, as long as you have a quorum, of making decisions like minutes and adjourn the meeting and all that stuff, or agenda. But we can still say that 4 is the number we need to propose that a law get moved forward in the process, or we could say now that we have 7 people, maybe that's an important enough thing, it should be 5. So I think it's up to, we created our own, I call them bylaws, but it's just a couple of paragraphs in the reference document that talks about who we are and how we do our business. I'm happy with whatever the group wants for what's the right number for proposing that a law get moved forward in the process. In my opinion, everything else is the same. If it's important to people, because we were all, the 6 of us were all appointed by a town resolution. Again, Bill said in his opinion that we can add Jude, we can do what we want to do, we can keep moving forward. 7's a good number for a lot of committees, and an odd number kind of is a handy thing. So I think it kind of makes us right size in my opinion. If you would like to wait for a town board resolution, Bill was very happy to entertain that, but he didn't think it was necessary.
I'm sure everyone is fine with Jude. Well, I'm not sure, but I'm confident everything's fine with
Well, I spoke with everybody. Everybody gave me the okay.
Do we want to poll the board about the 5 versus 4 vote thing? I mean, I don't feel particularly strongly about it. The thing is, if attendance is perfect, it feels like a large threshold, 5 out of 7 at a glance, but I don't honestly see us being in so much opposition that that's the case. I'm more worried about overall turnout than us. That's really more the concern,
Well, it's just for laws, and we did say, and I will pull up the reference document because I think it would be, I think it will help our conversation. And it'll just take me a moment to get to it.
no, nobody missing. Well, it's 2 guys missing. One is on the zoning board of appeals. What is the other guy?
Okay, so, and I'm going to go ahead. I don't know where it went. I had it. There we go. Yay. Okay, so I have it, and I'm going to make it a little smaller, and I will share my screen. So our zoning reference document, let me take it from the top here. Okay, talks about how we all started, and I would add a little blurb that we've added Jude today, if that's what we agreed to do. I'll add Jude's contact information. I have a committee mission and objectives, which I think would stay the same. Deliverables, protocol for zoning change recommendation. We officially have 6 members, could go up or down by 1. Well, we have 6 members, or if we have 7, a quorum, and we've already included this. If we have and we approved this way back a long time ago. If we have 6 members, or if we have 7, a quorum to hold a formal meeting would be 4, and any Woodstock zoning law change to be recommended by this committee requires 4 yes votes. If in the future our committee formally has 5 members, a quorum would then be 3, and any zoning law change recommended by this committee would require 3 yes votes. Anytime a quorum of the zoning revision committee approves a recommended change to the Woodstock zoning law, if it is not unanimously approved by the zoning revision committee, members with a minority opinion have the right to document their opinion along with their proposed alternative Woodstock zoning law text and ask for the Woodstock Town Board to decide which version of the law to take forward in the process. So we have acknowledged that if we're not unanimous, then we have people, everybody can still speak. The majority can speak and say, here's what we recommend. The minority can say, yes, but we have an alternative recommendation. So we kind of covered all of that. And then it's up to us to decide when we have enough zoning law recommendations to take forward, because you might want to lump some together. So I actually think that our reference document kind of covers.
I mean, it sounds like it's spelled out to be 4. Am I reading this wrong?
The quorum would be 4. It says, yeah, and we documented this and approved it one of our early meetings, which would have been 2 years ago.
So then Jude
Yes.
would join and the threshold would not change.
Right. While we have 6 members, or if we have 7, which would be Jude, a quorum to hold a formal meeting would be 4. And any Woodstock zoning law change to be recommended by this committee requires 4 yes votes.
Right, I'm totally fine with that. Does anyone have any?
And I'll stop sharing so we can see everybody. So the two questions are, and I'm only 1 vote, and I'm a consensus leader, meaning if the consensus says something's important, I want to resolve that. So that being the case, do you want me to ask for a specific town board resolution to add Jude? Or are we okay saying we agree and from here on out, she's a member and I'll add her to the list at the start of this document and we move forward? Or would you like to stand on formality? And there's, neither answer is wrong. I want to do what makes you all comfortable.
I have no problem with her being on the board and committee.
No problem.
But the issue of voting in, before it required a 2/3 vote. When we had 6, it required a 2/3 vote to have a law pass on to the town board for consideration, or an amendment to the law.
Yes.
So the question is, in my mind, do we want to keep, now that we have 7, do we want to keep a majority of 4, which is less than 2/3, pass the amendment on to the board? I don't know. I don't have any. There might be something coming up that's controversial. So I don't know.
Would you like us to say it takes 5 out of the 7? 4 is a quorum to have a meeting, but for us to agree.
5 makes it more than 2/3, but
well, it does, and most committees, I think, run with majority rule. I think most committees have an odd number for the reason that you can always get a majority. When you have a group with 6, it's a little odd, because if everybody's in attendance, you can have 3 and 3. And Jude, did you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to say, I know that, for example, on the planning board, if they want to override the CCD or the Ulster County Planning Board, it's a majority +1. So for things that are important, that does come into play.
So when majority +1 and you have odd number boards, what does that mean? If you have a 7-member board, does the majority is 4 + 1? So we could, and I'm okay with, or do people want to think about this? Because we can make updating the reference document a thing to do next time we meet. because, yeah, I'm watching the clock as I tend to do. And so, do we want to think about this, and we'll update the reference document the next time
Yes.
to go through that? Okay. So next time, update reference document. Doc. Okay. Now, regarding number for proposed law. Is it 4 or 5? Or 5, and 5 would be the +1. So is it 4 or 5? So we will do that. Now and I spoke with everybody separately, and everybody did say yes to Jude. So you can change your mind now if you want. But however, I did speak with everybody, and I did get a yes. So that being the case, is it okay that we decide here and now that Jude is an official member and is a voting member, or would you like me to ask Bill McKenna for a town board resolution? I mean, people can have
No,
reasons.
I don't think that's necessary.
Okay. Does anybody think a town board resolution is necessary? Jude? Oh, you would like a town board resolution? Okay.
I think it just clears it and it takes the responsibility off of this group.
Resolution.
I actually agree with you, because what would stop us from just willy-nilly adding people if we thought we could do it ourselves?
Well,
Yeah.
it does say in the reference document and grow or
By
shrink
one.
by 1. But hey, why not? Why not just do it?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
I have no-
And
Unless they're going to say no.
So-
They'd say that.
yeah. Okay. I'm okay either way. So Jude, you're one step away. You have momentum in the joining direction, and our next town board meeting is our next town board meeting would be on the 8th of February. So I will ask about that. So okay. All righty. So I'm going to run back to the agenda. I know we like to keep meetings at an hour if possible. So I'll give status. So the other items on the agenda: regulating wireless. Andrew Campanelli is off working on building a telecommunications law built off of the Fishkill law, which we all agreed to, the town board agreed to, and he's doing it. I heard he got COVID. I heard he was a little held up. And so we don't have that yet. I checked with Bill again today and said, have you seen it? And no, he is not. But I do know that Andrew Campanelli had COVID. I forgot to mention, oh, go ahead, Ed.
Was there any way you can get in direct contact with Campanelli rather than rely on Bill, who's very busy? Of course, you're busy too, but
well, that's okay.
it seems like this thing is going on and on.
It is.
And there is a significant minority in the community that is very concerned about 5G. And
right.
I can't imagine they're not pulling their teeth out or their hair out, worried about when is Campanelli. I mean, I turned in the law that I wrote over a year ago. I finished writing it in October of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it passed muster considerably with Mr. Campanelli. He thought of additional things to add. So I allowed it. I said, okay, let him do it. But it's really.
Honestly, I'm just going to say, I don't know why we did this. I mean, I think it was kowtowing to a particularly loud vocal minority, but like, and that's what we do though. Like people get upset and we just outsource responsibility. I don't know. This whole thing was.
It seemed that I mean, it's a decision made, and I did come to the zoning revision committee, and the zoning revision committee, it was unanimous. I forget if you were there, but I got minutes to say, said, okay, the law that he built for Fishkill looked like it was a more complete law. And we thought that was a good thing to base the Woodstock law on. So that was a decision that we made together. And so we're on that path. The one thing that we could. Go ahead, Ed. I know.
Mr. Campanelli is building these laws on the law he wrote for Calabasas, California, a couple of years ago. I used a lot of the Calabasas law for ours. I thought we could save money if I just kept the first section of the telecommunication laws more or less as it was, and write a preamble for both sections and then have a small wireless facility as part 2.
Mhm.
And I copied a lot of what Campanelli had said in his July 2020 lecture to us and from
Yeah.
the various laws he has written.
Mhm.
So
Well, he's not getting paid until he produces the work. Jeff, you had a comment.
Yeah, I think we can move on, but I think we're all agreed that we're frustrated with the timing, not necessarily the decision of using.
yeah,
The
Right.
we just want to know when
timing is just
gonna
going
happen.
on and on and on. It's like, can we just
Yeah.
get this done?
Right.
And the 5G, there's a big issue about the rollout of 5G interrupting large airplane radar when they try to land. So there's,
Right.
it's a hot
Right.
issue.
Absolutely. Deadly, potentially deadly issue.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so the sooner we can get Mr. Campanelli's law in
Mhm.
place and then
Right.
scan it and make sure it's got okay, it can be a successful success story from this committee.
Yes. Yep. So, okay. Any other comments on that? I had just a couple other topics. I wanted to let people know, so the water supply protection, Steve Winkley did present at the town board meeting on the 11th. Oh, before I forget, actually, it's not on my agenda written. I didn't want to put it on the written agenda, but, and I wish I'd remember this, so we had the other people on the call because I think everybody's going to want to know, but our police chief Clayton Keefe's sister just passed of COVID. And sorry to jump that right in the middle of all this stuff. Apparently she was 62. She heard it was COVID. Her obituary, well, it looks to me like they haven't perhaps finished it yet, but she just passed on the 22nd, just 2 days ago.
First name?
Last name?
First name.
Hang on a sec. And I'm ignoring that call.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's all right.
Well, yeah, well, it's very quick because
That's terrible.
Google, and it's the Gormley Funeral Home. And as soon as I get that up, she's like right at the top. Website.
Well, that's all right. You don't have to do that. That's
Donna
fine.
Keefe.
Oh, Donna Keefe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Donna Keefe.
My daughter knows her, I think.
Oh, okay. So, and that has, and it says that arrangements could be changed because they're still trying to get family involved.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Well, yeah, it's awful. And I thought, yes, Friday, so that's this 4 days away. Friends will be received Friday 4 to 7 at the Gormley Funeral Home in Phoenicia, and that a spring memorial service is being planned, but that some arrangements could change because the family is still, it's a shock. But I did want to share that because I've known Tim Keefe forever. I've known Clayton for a long time, but I've known Tim actually even longer than Clayton. And so anyway, so sorry for, yeah, so that was, I heard that a little bit before the meeting. It's like all of a sudden I had to take a little bit to kind of get myself going anyway. So sorry for all that bad news, but anyway, back to, I'll regroup now. So water supply protection, Steve Winkley did present to the town board on January 11th, and he presented the whole history of the law, where it's been, and even some information about the maps. And so where we are right now, as you have in the agenda that I sent out, I kind of put all this in the agenda that I sent out, is that and I also sent in a separate email a link to the Steve Winkley presentation and also another copy of the law. So the idea is to get this over the finish line. Bill McKenna, Supervisor McKenna, did appoint a committee, myself, and I'll be leading it, Bennett Ratcliffe. He wanted 2 town board members, so myself and Bennett Ratcliffe, and then Kirk and Deborah, who were just here, because housing is doing mapping. And so the thought is that the water supply protection has to do with mapping. And so they're on it. 2 planning board members, Peter Cross and Judy Kerman, you just saw Judy on the meeting, on this meeting. She's excellent at mapping. And then Peter, so hopefully by having planning right in this group will make things smoother when it officially goes back to the planning board. And then Arlene Weissman on the WEC with advisors, Steve Winkley, who is very key in writing this law, Grant, who works with Steve Winkley, Ed on our committee here, who is extremely influential in this, and then Ken Panza, who was originally appointed but declined, and then but he said he would be an advisor. So that's where the water supply protection law that we worked on is going to be looked at by a few more new people, and with I think 2 missions. One is finalize the words, second is finalize the map, and with that we'll with that we'll hopefully bring it over the finish line and get it officially moving on its way. So that's the status there. Pausing for a moment in case anybody has questions. So the other topic is scenic overlay.
I'm trying to get attention, okay?
Oh, I'm sorry. David, did you want something?
Yeah, I was just you're gonna send us Winkley's presentation, are you?
I sent an email that had 2 things. One, the latest copy of the law, because we've been massaging it a little bit because Ed had worked on it. Bill had some tweaks he wanted made. I made the tweaks. I reviewed them with Ed. And so I sent an email to the zoning revision committee members with the latest copy of the law and also a link to Steve Winkley's presentation. If for any reason you can't pull it down, I actually did. I don't know whether it's in some, things are in a folder. Sometimes you have to be approved to pull things out of it. So I don't know whether Steve just approved me because he knew I needed a copy or whether anybody can get to it. If you can't get to it, tell me and I can send you the PowerPoint, but it's like 4.5 meg and it's kind of like, well, I'll just send you the link. But if you want me to send you the PowerPoint itself, I can do that. I sent you a
would be fine.
Yeah, so you got an email that has a link and the latest law.
Okay, thank you.
So you got that, and it's all hot off the press stuff from this afternoon. Okay, so the next thing is scenic overlay. I attended, as well as I know Connor did because he's on the planning board, the January 20th review of the scenic overlay. The planning board, as we know, had a work session back in December 16th, where a lot of people came to talk about their thoughts and concerns with the current scenic overlay law. And then they had a follow-up meeting on the 20th for people to come and kind of consolidate their thoughts. And the planning board, and Connor has been great on that because Connor spoke very expertly and confidently about a lot of thoughts because Connor's been doing a ton of work on this. And I know Ed's been, I know Connor and Ed have been working together, but a lot of things have been brought forth by Connor. So anyway, so we attended that. So the scenic overlay, and really I know his last time Connor said that he had about a 4-page law that he and Ed had been working on. And so the planning board did agree. They're going to come from that and they're going to provide a planning board written statement about their thoughts about the scenic overlay law. So we, which is mostly Connor and working with Ed, can fold some of that in. So we're progressing with the scenic overlay law. And I know Connor and Ed have been doing work, and we're looking to get some planning board thoughts of what they think is critical. So that's scenic overlay.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. We have, yes, Ed and I have the draft, and I'm going to be showing that to the planning board at our next meeting. But I did follow up with a couple of people after that meeting. I spoke with Marissa, and I asked that when the planning board does meet next to actively discuss what their recommendations are going to be, I want to put a focus on one thing in particular, which is the monitoring of the scenic overlay. One of the, I think addressing the disclosure at the outset of the purchase is, of course, an effective thing to do. But we have to figure out, and right now in the language that me and Ed are working on, we're talking about the tree committee being sort of imbued agency to monitor the progress and the ongoing mediation, and even to recommend mitigation strategy and assess damage. But to be honest, you know, I want that. I want to hear more about that, particularly because there are other avenues to take, and it could be a multi-agency sort of effort. The other person I spoke to in regards to this was Alex, who's the chair of the WEC.
Mhm.
And one thing we're working on right now is there may be a commission that could be grown out of there, and based I'm not really ready to speak on that yet because we're still kind of collecting information. But what I'm hoping is that by the time we go this next planning board meeting, we'll have had the chance to flesh out this, whether or not the board they're looking at the WEC could be wrapped into this appropriately, because the difference would be them having the certification to be legally considered an advisory board on environmental matters
Mm,
versus our local tree committee.
cool.
And so that's kind of where things are right now. But I've gotten a lot of great information, including from Jude. So thank you very much. She, I believe, submitted it was a nice fee schedule and a local another local ordinance for their viewscape. So I'm collecting all that information still, but just to put a pin in all this, I don't want, and I told this to Alex, and I say it to people on the planning board too, like, you know, I do want to start submitting things. I honestly haven't heard back from Bill yet, and if I don't hear from him soon, I'm just gonna forego that avenue, and we'll, you
We're
know,
submitting things. What are you waiting for Bill on?
we had left off before we had submitted language to him as he asked, so that it could be submitted to the Association of Towns. The Association of Towns kicked it back, so he sent it to the county planner.
Mhm.
And that was the last we heard of it. Now that was the first round of edits, most of which is what's contained in the most recent draft language we have between me and Ed. But I'd like to wrap things up with the planning board and finish this WEC conversation to kind of add more clarity to that issue, and just also finish compiling all the other opinions and perspectives, because you know there's a lot of them out there, and I want to start to actually solidify something and close the submission window.
Well, so your approach then, if I can kind of restate, so your approach is, as you work on scenic overlay language, you're trying to get it the different pieces of it submitted to the Association of Towns for feedback, as opposed to doing getting all the language together and having one piece of scenic overlay proposed law updates. You're sending pieces to the Association of Towns, or you're sending it to Bill, who sent it to the Association of Towns, because I had in my notes from our meeting 2 weeks ago that you had sent driveway standards, for example, that you had sent driveway standards.
No, driveway standards was something that Peter had been talking about, and that's something we want to add to the existing language. That's going to be something that they're fleshing out in this planning board discussion. The driveway standards part of this is going to come back to us soon, because he sent it as part, I think, of a sort of loose batch of questions that we all thought needed more clarity. So that's going to come with the next wave of planning board things. So to answer your initial question, yes, for now, and up until now, I have been doing this sort of piecemeal because it's been taking so long. And the fact that I can submit part of it and have it take this long, you know, I told him there would be another round. So, you know, it just kind of goes to show, I mean, I don't think my point is we weren't ready with that, and I do want to continuously be checking the work we're doing. But if we're not going to get the check at all, then I say, you know, let's request, as we are so want to do. We had discussed this in the past. If we don't hear back from the Association of Towns, if we don't hear back from the county planner, to request the town attorney review the law. And
Well,
Yeah.
sorry.
That's what I was going to say. Is I think this is, from my memory of the discussions you've been having, you need an attorney to look at it. I don't think anyone. The county probably is unlikely to give you a legal opinion because they don't want to be held responsible.
Well, and this was my initial thing, and I
Right.
don't want to open this can of worms again, but it's been like pulling teeth to get an approval to talk to an attorney on the planning board. It seems, I feel, whether or not it is intended, that it's starting to feel like a bit of the runaround. And to be honest, the reason again to play piecemeal is because I want to see how it works. And so far, we haven't been getting timely responses or really any responses.
But it might be, it may be more efficient to get the whole, because you got a whole scenic overlay proposed update that you're working on. And my sense is it may be more efficient to get it all together and then pass it around as an entity rather than pieces that can be taken out of context. And the other thing is, when you say it's like pulling teeth to be able to get an attorney to work with the planning board, the fact of the matter is, as I said at the last planning board meeting, and planning board members didn't like it, but here's where we are.
Yeah, I know what you're gonna say, and I know how it works, but we've all gone down this road before, and the fact is it we don't need to rehash it. It's the reality of the situation. So I'm not saying that needs to be changed or we have to opine on our feelings about it, but we do have to move forward with something. And if we have to move forward with the smaller pieces of just getting feedback from Bill or any of the agencies that he's requesting to send these proposals.
Well, I get. Here's my thought, and I know
is going
I'm sorry. I will repeat this just because not everybody on this call has heard what's going on. So what's going on is for 2022, Bill, prior to 2022, Bill put professional fees in one line item in the budget. So it used to be planning board had some, and different groups had this and that. And the other you had your attorney fee or your attorney line on the budget. Now they're all rolled into one chunk in the budget, and you do have to talk with the supervisor, or you'll talk to me and I'll go talk to the supervisor. But to use that line of the budget, it's a matter of going to the supervisor and saying, here's what we want to use. You want to spend this money. And Bill increased that amount for this year with the expectation that there might be more people with deep pockets who are trying to do stuff, and the building department might have to take them to court, blah, blah, blah. So there is an attorney budget. And I know you've been kind of off doing it, but maybe, Connor, my thought is it may be a more efficient approach to, instead of send this part of the law and that part of the law, and the law isn't really even together yet, my gut feel is it may be a alternative, perhaps better approach to say, let's, complete writing your vision of what this law ought to be. It's got a lot of pieces to it, and you brought a lot of innovative ideas into it. But if you have, instead of sending piecemeals out in there, if you have the law together and it goes all in one chunk, and if it goes for a legal review, because you hadn't, even though I heard you talking about it, you didn't actually come through me and say, Laura, can you help get a lawyer to review things? But I don't know if it's sufficient for a lawyer to review things in pieces. You're going to have a full law. It's not going to be that long. It's 4 pages.
And I appreciate what you're saying here, but that's where we are now. It's going to be how it happened. So there's no real point in discussing it further because it's been put out there. It hasn't been responded to. And now within the next month, we're going to have the whole thing, and we're going to have it without the input that I was personally hoping for. That is not going to stop me from submitting anything, but that's the point, is that when we go to talk about, what are ultimately substantial changes to the zoning code, when one part informs the other and you are building essentially frameworks for accountability, future monitoring that goes into the decades, and new fine structures against professionals and not just
I got to go unlock a door. I'm sorry. Somebody's about to come home in the dark and the ice. I got to go turn around.
When you do, to whoever's like, when
I agree. I agree with you totally.
shouldn't
And
have to
I
go
think
and ask permission to talk to a professional. And I mean there hasn't been a history of people abusing these budgets. This is me playing ball up until this point. I have been playing ball by doing the things Bill has asked me to do. And you supported Bill when we did, and because we did talk about what we were going to do to investigate the language as we go. Because again, how do you build a framework if the links that you're using are faulty? And then what? We find out that a core piece of this is like completely untenable or needs to be reworked, and then we're back at square one. I don't think we're going to find ourselves there, but I'm sure the time that we would have saved just to hear a professional say yes would not have been well spent if it took the amount of time it could have taken, and it has taken in the past when boards like the planning board had access to their own attorney.
Right. Well, and so you're raising really good points now that I was not aware of. I know that Bill, well, so Bill always does like to watch the taxpayers' money. So he always likes to try the thing that doesn't cost money before you try the thing that does cost money. By that, I mean, I know he likes the Association of Towns because you ask him for the opinion and they're free and the lawyer costs money. So he likes to do that first. But your point, which is what I'm hearing now from you right now, is the Association of Towns is slow. They're not giving you the feedback. So it's the free choice, but hasn't been an effective choice. So this is a message I'm hearing from you right now.
That's part of the message. And I really don't want to get too lost in the sauce here, but it's also about the autonomy not to have boards explaining themselves to the supervisor all the time. I understand that, his role, but it's not, and you tell us all the time you worked in a corporate environment, so I know how important perception is in all of this, and the perception even from the outside of putting your thumb on the scale and saying what does and what does not constitute a reasonable request for legal counsel, to me, could very easily be perceived as inappropriate.
Yeah, well, and I know that for the planning board was pretty clear about not liking the about not liking having to do that. So in any event, so to make a long story short, then
if I may, Laura, just to say,
yes.
what I'm asking for, just to bring this back to what we're talking about, is to say, now that we're past all this, because
Right.
I don't personally want to go through this rigmarole again. Once
Right.
we do have the language, which I'm hoping should be, reasonably soon after we hear back from the WEC and the planning board, I want to send it to the town attorney. I don't want to go through this whole process with the Association of Towns again and all that. Did that. We saw how it went. I've done it twice,
Right.
just for this board, not including the planning board, and it's never been satisfactory. Nothing against them. I'm sure they deal with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
What we're asking for is not expensive or unreasonable.
Yeah. Okay. So go ahead, Jude. And I'm watching my clock here because
I'll be real quick. I think some of the questions that Connor, correct me if I'm wrong, that you really needed to have answered before you could proceed with really writing the law was making other professionals accountable for development in the scenic overlay. And I think that's a really big question you need to have answered before you can even construct your law. Is that right?
That was absolutely the most pivotal question.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there were others, but that was really central to the framework of the accountability. It determines who we can go after, if we can, and where the funds would come from to establish a slush fund that the town could use to, again, address remediation when accountability can't be achieved. So it is a pivotal question.
Yeah. So yep. So I will go back and anyway. So I hear your concern. I hear your concern, and we'll look to work within what we've got, because that's what we've got this year. So anyway, so thank you, Connor, for the update, and thank you for the work that you're doing. And thank you for all the innovative thoughts you're bringing into it. Do you have something else that you wanted to say? You look like you might have. You're waving to somebody else, I think.
Sorry, that should just about do it. I mean, I really just want to make, I want to keep everything as above board as possible. And, you know, we got to draw this down to a close, and we're already, I think, rightly concerned about how long this process could take outside of going back to the Association of Towns, which I'm going on
Right.
2.5 months now.
Yeah.
Since
So how long, 2.5 months?
at least 2.
Yeah. Okay. These 2 months. Okay. Right. Because you were talking about these concepts a long time ago, I know. So. Okay.
I know we were talking about before I went to Mexico, and that was the end of November.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. So thank you for the update, and we'll see where you are. So so our next meeting, because we meet the second, because we meet the second and the fourth Mondays of the month, our next meeting would actually be 3 weeks away, and it would in fact be Valentine's Day. So I wanted to ask whether you all, choices A, B, and C. Choice A, meet on Valentine's Day because that's our scheduled meeting. Choice B, meet the first Monday of the month, which is the 7th. So we can still meet and keep progress on things, and but not meet on Valentine's Day. Or choice C is we say, well, we're going to skip because there are a lot of things going on, and we think that we're going to be in March is when we're going to be seeing some things from the Housing Oversight Task Force, and March would give Connor more time. You know, the fourth Monday in February rather would give Connor more time. So we have a lot of hot things. I don't want to go a whole month if we think we have more stuff to talk about for the scenic overlay. And if Connor, if you think you'll have something in 2 weeks, I'd like to be jumping right on it. I'll make myself available on Valentine's Day. I just want to give you all a choice. So we either meet February 7th, or we meet February 14th, or we skip. I kind of hate to do that, but it's a choice.
Honestly, I'm for skipping because I can't get in trouble like that and be here on Valentine's Day. And the planning board meeting, I don't even know if it's before then. I'm trying, for some reason my calendar is not wanting to pull up right now, but I wanted to say that part of my conversation is predicated on something happening on February 8th, if only my calendar would open.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I'm option C. C.
Option C is skip. Okay. So I'll poll everybody. David, what would you like to do?
Who, me?
Would you like to, should our next meeting be February 7th, which is the first Monday, February 14th, which is Valentine's Day, or skip and we'll pick it up on February 28th?
I don't care. Whenever we meet, we'll meet.
Okay. Jeff, what's your vote?
Whatever, doesn't matter.
There we go. Ed, do you have a vote?
I think he stepped away.
The most important question of the night. Okay. And then, Jude, do you have an opinion?
Am I still muted? No. Okay.
No, we can hear you.
It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter. I'll go along with whatever everybody else wants to do. I may not be officially on as of the 7th, but I'll be here anyway.
Does this mean I win?
No, I'm sorry. What? Does that mean you win? Is that what you said? Maybe. Well, I'm looking because our next board meeting would be February 8th. So if you're at the 7th, you still wouldn't be in. Okay. So we are. Okay. So our next. And of course, when I bring my calendar up, I can't see Ed. Hey, Ed.
Yeah.
Hi, we have a big question.
Yes.
So we have everybody saying one person voted. But one person voted and everybody else said they'll do what everybody wants. Our next meeting, if we had it on schedule, would be February 14th, Valentine's Day. Given the choice of meeting February 7th, which is 2 weeks from now, but not Valentine's Day, it's the first Monday, or Valentine's Day, or skipping such that our next meeting is February 28th, giving Connor more time to wrap up his, and our main topic right now is scenic overlay, and Connor is voting to skip and not meet on Valentine's Day. And if we met on the 28th, that would give about 5 weeks to wrap up the scenic overlay that we could be reviewing, and then we would position ourselves for the housing. So we have one vote to skip, and everybody else says they'll do what everybody wants, and you're the last person to ask. So the question's up to you. Sound like, does Miriam need something?
No, I'm here.
Yes. So would you like for our next meeting to be Valentine's?
No, I want to skip Valentine's.
Okay. And I think that the 7th won't give Connor, he needs some meetings with the planning
The
board.
28th, not going to go away. And it's a
Okay.
complicated issue.
Yeah. Okay. So we will, and then we also have the water protection that I know I'll be working on between now and then. Jeff and Michael and I are working on Housing Oversight Task Force between now and then. So we have a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. And I know Connor and Ed, you guys are working on scenic overlay. So skip it is. Our next meeting is February 28th. Any questions from Janine? I know you've been listening happily. Any questions?
No, I don't have any questions, and I appreciate you letting me sit in on this, and it's very interesting, and I will be back. So thank you, and I appreciate all the hard work that you are all doing. It's hard work. I've been there, and I know that. So thank you, thank you.
And I appreciate all the hard work everybody's doing, because everybody, as we get different topics, different people are the ones take the lead on it. So it's much appreciated. And David, I know you've had Pat there. I don't know if she's still there or if there's anything.
He's still here.
Pat, anything you wanted to say? A hand. I recognize that hand anywhere. So, okay. Well, we're at our hour and a half, which is, we say we like to be an hour, but we like to quit at an hour and a half no matter what. So I think we're good. We'll talk about scenic overlay next time. And at some point we'll talk about the NCLI1 law. But I think to try to pick up something like that right now, since we have housing oversight is coming soon, we may have more people involved in the water supply protection, which is coming even sooner. So anyway, we do have a lot going on. So our next official meeting, February 28th, and we'll try to focus mostly on scenic overlay. Making my notes there. And that's the main thing. And maybe water protection, depends on what's going on there. Okay, anything else before we close?
Motion to adjourn.
Hey, wow, good stuff. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Yeah, all in favor.
Aye.
All right.
I think we have a quorum saying yes. So we are good to go. Thank you. And Connor, thank you. And Connor, reach out to me if there's anything that you need, and in between, if you need something from Bill and, and you'd like to have somebody else chipping in with you, I'm happy to do that.
Well, I mean, if and when I hear from him, but at this point, my plan is to get the rest of the language together, shop it to you guys,
Okay.
the planning board, and then submit it to an attorney as directly we can make happen. Yep. Whatever the in process, and I imagine from there it'll have to go to, I imagine, the town board and the state and the county, whatever happens after that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will talk with Bill about your Association of Towns experience and the importance of being quick to get to the attorney, and we'll see how we go. But we're a town board, and we're a board of 5, and 3 is a quorum, and if 3 people agree, then we do it. So.
Yep, that's how I understand it. You guys have a great rest of your evening.
You too, and thanks for all you're doing. Thanks, Judy, for joining us. Jeff, great presentation tonight. Thank you for did a great job of covering important points concisely. So, well done.
Okay, see y'all.
Thanks all.